Thank you, David, and good afternoon, everyone. He's right. It is true. I much prefer to be a part of a meeting or initiative that has a vision or a purpose, just as I much prefer to have discussion that is actionable versus just provides an update. My hope is that you will leave here today with a better understanding of United Way's purpose, our vision, that you will leave here today with information that you can and want to take with you because you feel good. Actually, scratch that. We want you to feel great because of your engagement with the United Way of Cast Clay. Now, David mentioned that I was going to talk to you a little bit today about the changes in the way that we are utilizing your donor dollars. I tend to think of it as more of an evolution. But semantics aside, why is it important that United Way change or evolve now? Well, let's begin by taking a look at our community overall. We have a thriving business community. We're sitting at 3.6% unemployment, or approximately 50% of the national average. We have collective goodwill and a willingness to partner across the nonprofit sector. And we have a community culture of active philanthropy. In short, life is so good for so many of us. And yet, our community, like many others, faces challenges. There are individuals and families that need our help. So with all that we have going for us in this community, the leadership at United Way believes that now is the right time to leverage United Way's unique position, our ability to bring people and organizations together from all across different sectors to make our community a better place for all who live here. So let's talk about this evolution. 86 years ago, the United Way of Cast Clay began, and we were often referred to as a community chest. We would invest in nonprofit agencies that all had varied missions, but they had one thing in common, and that was helping individuals and families. Then in the 1990s, we evolved into funding and investing in programs that could measure their outcomes so that we could report back to all of you, our investors. What was the return on your investment? What was the social change that had been created? In 2013 and beyond, we want to make the most of our unique position in the community to move from individual organization outcomes to community-wide solutions. Because of our longevity in working with both the not-for-profit sector and the for-profit sector, combined with our volunteer-led funding model, we have the ability to see common concerns that we all share so that together we can determine strategies and action steps that address these concerns in the most cost-effective way possible. Our evolution, in a nutshell, is from investing in agencies to programs to now a collaborative approach that will address community needs involving many different sectors. So what do I really mean by community collaborations? We will still have a volunteer-led vetting process. We will still invest in nonprofit programs or provide grants. But instead of having a one-to-one relationship between the United Way and our nonprofit partners, we are going to create partnerships across sectors that are all working on similar issues. Let me be frank. There is no silver bullet. No one organization alone can end hunger or homelessness or any other need that a community faces. But when we work together, playing to each organization's respective strengths, we can and will help those most in need in this community. At United Way, we've been investing or funding programs in the area of basic needs and prevention and development, and we've been working in the area of education for over a decade. So like the evolution that is taking place in how we are going to invest, we're also evolving the areas that we're going to invest in. In 2013 and beyond, they are education, income stability, and health. Now, why should we focus on these three? Because at United Way, we believe that education is essential to getting and keeping a job with a wage that can sustain a family. An income that can cover for today and save for tomorrow can build a family's solid foundation. And good health keeps children on track at school and parents productive at work. By leveraging these three investments, we believe that we will have a foundation across our community for not only individual prosperity, but community prosperity. This new approach of funding solutions instead of programs or agencies individually allows us to create and sustain partnerships that will last beyond funding allocations and short-term solutions, to partnerships with a focus on community-wide goals, and here's the key, that address root cause issues. This is an evolutionary change. This is an evolutionary process. And we've already begun by taking the first steps in focusing in the area of education. Now, as I begin to share with you about the significant amount of resources that we are going to invest in the area of education, some of you may be quietly wondering, hey, United Way, don't we have some of the highest graduation rates in the country? And you're right, we do. We do have some of the highest graduation rates in the country, but unfortunately, looking at graduation rates alone doesn't tell you the full story of what's going on in the area of education. Now, there is a tremendous amount of stats or research or documents that I could point to, but for the sake of time today, I want to share with you three. We all know that anyone working in the area of education is really a cradle to career undertaking, because education truly starts at birth. But there are indicators, and they're on the screen in front of you, that we can use when we look at the area of education. I want to begin by talking about the first one, or what we call kindergarten readiness. And in order to do that, we need to take a look at the child care issue in our community. We have approximately 29,000 students in our community, 12 and under, or presumably the age that would need to have child care. And yet, 50% have it available to them. 50%. We know from child care providers that the current waiting list is at best months long, and our educators tell us that oftentimes children are at home unattended, or at best with a younger, older sibling. The lack of child care is an issue that needs to be addressed if we want our children to be ready to be successful when they enter school. Now, before some of you say, hey, wait a minute, I stayed home with my children. They don't need to be in a center to be ready for school. Parent to parent, I would tell you I agree with you. But the truth of the matter is we have children in this community who need to be in a setting that aren't, because their parents don't have access to quality child care options, and they don't have friends or family for those children to be with. So now there's so much more that I could share with you, but again, we want to honor your time. So now that we've taken a look at just one data point around the first indicator, or kindergarten readiness, let's move to that last indicator and talk about college, work, and life preparedness. Here's a stat that you may find alarming. I know I did. The percent of students that are attending a North Dakota State University System college that need to take remedial courses is 24%. Look around your tables. There's approximately 8 of you at each table. That means 2 of you would need to take remedial courses. Now let me say this again. You can all decide who it's going to be. Opened a can of worms there, didn't I? The percent of students that are attending a North Dakota State University System college, or a college that receives state funding, that need to take a remedial course, or a course that these kids are going to pay for, but they're not going to receive any college credit for because they're not academically ready yet, is 24%. These kids are our future workforce. Do they have the 21st century skills necessary for you, your teams, or those that you serve? Many of you in the room today are business leaders. Your organizations have visions and goals that you want to accomplish. Does this next generation of workforce have the skills in order to help get your company there? So now, we've talked a little bit about the first indicator, or pre-K readiness. We've talked about that last indicator, or post-secondary education. I want to talk a little bit about what happens during those middle years. When our team was taking a look at some academic information from the Department of Public Instruction, we realized that we have an achievement gap that's happening across our community. And in order to illustrate this, I want to share with you information from 2 of our local schools. Now, on the screen in front of you, you're going to see information from Centennial Elementary. You're probably mostly familiar with this. This is the elementary school that's south on 25th Street. And then we're also going to take a look at Jefferson Elementary. Jefferson Elementary is north of 13th in the Jefferson neighborhood. So let's begin by taking a look at some of their reading and math scores. Math first. 91% versus 77% between Centennial and Jefferson. Now let's take a look at the associated reading scores. In Centennial, you can see that it's 80%, and in Jefferson, it's 67%. And you can also see that we have a gap of 14% and 13% respectively. Why is this happening? So our team went back and we said, what else can we learn about these schools? And let me share two more indicators with you. The first one is, what is the median household income that feeds into these schools? Take a look at this. $110,000 for Centennial, median household income, as compared to $29,600 in Jefferson. So then we asked ourselves, what's the percent of children that are on the federal free and reduced lunch program? Now, you may not be surprised by Centennial's percentages, but I bet some of you are surprised by Jefferson. These schools are exactly 4.3 miles apart. These schools are in the same school district. What do these numbers that we've shared with you today tell you about the students and their ability to be successful in school and eventually life? The one consistent message that we hear from our educators and our nonprofits that we work with when we ask them, why aren't students doing well in school? It's not race, it's not ethnicity, and it's not gender. It's poverty. Poverty is the biggest single consistent factor when it comes to the academic achievement gap. The federal poverty level for a family of 4 is living on an annual household income of $23,550 a year. And in our 2-county area, that equates to 13% of our residents, or more specifically, 5,500 students in our 3 metro school districts alone. Poverty. It isn't a word that we often think about when we think about individuals and families in this community, but it does exist here, and it has implications for our community overall. Now, United Way isn't going to exclusively focus on kids at the poverty level, but we do want to be clear. One of the goals of our new United for Education Collaborative is to help kids be successful in school along their educational journey. And we know that some kids will need more access to intervention than others, but we also know that this is the right place to make our investments for all the reasons that research tells us. At this time, it is important that I point out that United Way is a huge proponent for our local educators. And in no way do the stats that I've shared with you today around the lack of childcare, the achievement gap, or the need for remedial reading reflect locally on their ability to teach. But one educator that we spoke with has put it this way: if we only had a chance to teach them. We know that kids are coming into the schools and into the classrooms with all kinds of issues that they are facing today, which is one of the reasons why we are so excited about working with this new way of working with the educators and the nonprofits together. Now, I want to stay focused on the Jefferson community for a minute, because I bet a few of you, like me, had kind of an aha moment when we took a look at some of those statistics. Brad Franklin is the principal at Jefferson Elementary, and unfortunately, he's unable to be with us today. But he called our office last fall, and this is what he said to us. United Way, I have approximately 350 elementary students in my school, and on average, a third of them move in and out of the school year. And when they do that, as you can imagine, it's very traumatic for the students and their families, because they lose up to 2 months of academic learning every time they move in and out of the school. We've had programs in the past, but unfortunately grants dry up and they go away, and the community can't support them. Now, unfortunately, Brad isn't able to be with us today. He had a prior family commitment. He's actually at Disney World. I can't imagine he picked Disney World over this, but he did. However, I did have a chance to sit down with him last week, and I want to share with you briefly what we discussed.
Principal Franklin, when you reached out to United Way, what was happening at Jefferson neighborhood and specifically within Jefferson Elementary?
We had a half-time social worker through a grant, and the grant dried up. So we saw some tremendous gains having that social worker here at Jefferson, and we wanted to sustain that program.
You know, in response to the needs of the students and the families here at Jefferson, United Way was able to help put a social worker back in place. Can you share with us some of the successes that have happened since she's been back in place?
Just the last few weeks, we've had Amy, our social worker, work with a first grade family. That student was coming to school late, sometimes not coming to school at all. So she just reached out to that family to help them with the root cause of why that student wasn't getting to Jefferson on time. She would help them set up medical appointments. Sometimes they were working split shifts, so she'd help them kind of structure the morning or after school to make sure that child could get here on time and was being successful at home. And also just something simple as getting them eyeglasses, so when they were at Jefferson, they were prepared to have a productive day.
Brad, can you share with us some of your short and long-term goals now that we have this partnership together?
If we can get students here on time each day and to school each day, we know they can learn. So our short-term goal is working with the families to make sure these students do get to Jefferson each day on time so they can start their school day with all the other students in the classroom. Our long-term goal is just to create habits and positive patterns in these students, so as they transition through Jefferson, they're successful, but also when they go to middle school or high school, they'll have a positive experience.
Principal Franklin, thank you so much for reaching out to United Way. We know that education is important at Jefferson Elementary, just like education is important at United Way. And through this new partnership, we are incredibly excited about being able to create patterns for students so that they can be successful in elementary school and as they continue on their educational journey. We so look forward to working with you.
And we thank United Way. We've seen a difference already this week, so thank you for your support.
It was wonderful to be able to receive that call last fall from Principal Franklin and other nonprofits that reached out to United Way and said, can you help us? We have needs in our community, we have needs in our school, and we'd like United Way to help lead us in determining what the right solutions are. We have over 20 organizations that are a part of the United for Jefferson Collaborative, ranging from nonprofits to apartment managers to police, healthcare organizations, faith-based organizations, and parent groups. And they are all working toward common goals for the kids and the families of the Jefferson community, our community. Much like the work that we've started in the Jefferson neighborhood, we have a wider initiative called the United for Education Collaborative. And we have 26 nonprofit partners in 3 metro school districts, and we're currently working with them to determine what are the challenges, the gaps, and the barriers that they are facing, so that together with our educators and our nonprofit partners, we can determine what are the appropriate community-wide strategies to help these kids be successful. This new collaborative approach will allow us to take what we refer to as a whole child approach. Now, what I mean by that is when we look at creating opportunities for kids, we need to make sure that they can be successful in school and in life, and therefore we need to begin by focusing on their basic needs. Do they have a stable shelter, a stable home? Do they have food to eat consistently, or are they going hungry? Is their home free from domestic violence? Basic needs such as these always have and always will be a part of the United Way investment strategy in this community. But once we know that these basic needs are met, we are able to focus on additional issues, such as, do they have access to early quality child care so that they can be ready for school? Do they have access to health or dental care so that when they're in the classroom, they can actually focus? Do they have a safe place to go after school? And do they have a learning disability? And if so, is it diagnosed? And do they have access to the appropriate interventions? By utilizing this new collaborative approach, we believe at United Way that we'll be able to help the children of today become prosperous young adults, but more importantly, help slow the cycle of poverty, which in turn will create a more vibrant and prosperous community for the individuals that live here and our community overall. Now, for all of the reasons that I mentioned earlier, the time is now for this innovative strategy. United Way has the ability, we have the tools, we have the resources to make a difference. Our community is ready to work in this way, and there is energy around a collaborative approach. I want to offer one final example to you today about the collaborative approach in action. Unfortunately, all of us in the room know that we have hungry children in this community. And we also know that we have philanthropic corporate partners like John Deere Electronic Solutions, or JDES. They contacted us last fall and they said, United Way, we want a way to engage our entire Fargo campus in two of our philanthropic interest areas, education and feeding the hungry. We will provide $15,000 and 25 employees to volunteer each week of the 12-week summer vacation, so that kids that are part of the backpack program during the school year also receive a backpack full of food during the summer months. Now, in order for United Way to be able to accomplish a pilot like this, we needed to reach out to our nonprofit partners. So we contacted the Great Plains Food Bank, Salvation Army, Fargo Youth Commission, and Charism to provide a summer food delivery program to 420 kids across 6 elementary schools. Now, we're going to continue this partnership in 2013 with JDES, and we thank them for reaching out to United Way. And additionally, we're looking for more corporate partners to make sure that we can feed children in this community through the summer. So if you're interested in being one of those partners, please reach out to Christy Huber or Thomas Hill on the United Way staff. You know, I've talked a lot today about our change or our evolution, but the one thing that will never, ever change at United Way is that at the heart of everything that we do is help people. It always has been, and it always will be. So our evolution on how we invest is from funding agencies to funding programs to now investing in community-wide solutions using a collaborative approach. And our evolution in what we're investing in is education, income stability, and health, with a foundation centered on basic needs. At United Way, our vision is clear, and our purpose is understood. And we want you, each and every one of you in this room, to feel fulfilled because of your involvement with us. We want you to continue your involvement with us. And we want you to help us find ways to involve others in our necessary work, because we want life to be so good for all who live in our community. Finally, on a personal note, I want to share with you that a few weeks ago, I lost a friend. Mrs. Elsie Biles was a dear friend to me and a private philanthropist who died after a very full life at the age of 98. She spent the last several decades of her life giving, or as she would say, investing, millions of dollars in numerous organizations across her home community in Augusta, Maine. I remember distinctly her response to me when I told her that I had accepted the president's position at United Way. United Way, community philanthropy. I am so proud of you. For so long, people had referred to her as a philanthropist, mainly because of who she was as a person, her generous spirit, but also because of her generosity. But what Elsie was so able to succinctly describe that day was what she felt in her heart every day. Philanthropy is about the inclination, the desire to increase well-being of humankind. And she knew that it didn't matter if you gave $100 or $100,000, that with United Way, the desire to give back can be turned into action. And collectively, that action has the ability to increase the well-being of humankind for individuals and families in our community. She was right, as she often was. We are, all of us, community philanthropy in action. I want to thank you for being with us today. And I would ask that you remember that underneath everything we are, underneath everything we do, we are all people connected. And United Way connects us all. Thank you so much for being with us today, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Heart is a balloon, shoots up through the stony ground. There's no